changes to Quinn, Nasus, and the introduction of Freljord in this episode of the Patch Preview. Hey Summoners, and welcome to the Freljord Patch Preview. I'm your host, Quiff, here with a couple of our designers, Morello and Brackar. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, doing fine.
Before I get to our balance talk, we have a lot of new content coming with Freljord, so I'm going to kick this off to Morello to find out what's going on in the north.
Yeah, so as you've probably noticed, we've put out a lot of Ice Team content for this Freljord event. You know, it's this big conflict up in the north between Ashe, Sejuani, and Lysandra, duking it out for control of the entire region. We do have the Sejuani and Trundle relaunches coming out for this event as well, and there's going to be some champion spotlights you can check out to get the full nitty-gritty on those. We also have an in-client Choose Your Allegiance event where you can align yourself with one of the 3 tribes of Freljord. This lets you participate and kind of get involved with the event even if you don't play one of the Freljord champions. Lastly, and I know Brackar's been dying to talk about this, we have the new Howling Abyss map for ARAM. This map is set in the Freljord and kind of takes you in there to experience it for yourself.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to finally be able to show this off. With Howling Abyss, we wanted to give our single lane map, the Proving Grounds, a sense of place and story. So now we've rebooted the whole thing using all the techniques and technology that we developed with Twisted Treeline, and we've set it deep inside of Freljord, where an ancient battle took place far in the past. There are a lot of cool lore hooks and ties within Howling Abyss, and you'll be able to find out more by playing the map and by interacting with our 2 unique shopkeepers. Both shopkeepers also have VO lines that respond to what you're doing and who you're playing. Additionally, we knew that players really wanted matchmaking support for our all-random all-mid mode, which was the main way they engaged with Proving Grounds, so we decided to also bundle that into this map relaunch.
Another thing players have been asking for are tools to deal with dodgers in ARAM. I'm sure we've all been in games where someone's randomed a bad matchup and decided to jump ship. What are we doing there?
Since we've added matchmaking, this means you'll automatically get the lever buster support that League of Legends has, so players that dodge won't be able to hop right back into the queue, which should help. But we also get that sometimes you run into a game of ARAM and you don't want to play the particular champion that you get. For those situations, we created rerolls. As you play games of ARAM, you gain reroll points that you can spend to reroll your pick in Champion Select. Players who have more champions will get these points faster, and free-to-play champions will be included in these rerolls as well.
So there's still a lot of chance involved, but at least I'll be able to random again when I have an all-melee team against an opposing Lux and Nidalee.
Definitely. But on that note, we also made a few gameplay changes to the map itself. We've actually added 2 new items to the game. One of those is called the Guardian's Horn, which is specifically designed to help melee champions engage when the enemy team is just sitting back and throwing spears or firing lasers all day.
I am definitely looking forward to the new Howling Abyss. Thanks for coming out, Brackar.
Yeah, thanks dude, I appreciate being here.
Alright, I'm going to turn things over to our live design discussion with Morello. We're making some pretty big balance changes in this patch, so let's start with Quinn, because I'm a fan of AD carries. Currently, Quinn is a little unconventional in how she's meant to be played. Her ultimate forces her into melee form, and even her vault can put her in some bad situations. Players have been asking for range buffs to let Quinn play safer, but we've instead given her a lot more mobility. Why did we do that?
Quinn kind of occupies her own space in the team, and especially her own space in the AD carry role. What we didn't want to do is flatten her out and take away the unique quirks that Quinn has and allows her to occupy that unique space on the team. Still though, at the end of the day, as a non-traditional AD carry, it requires a little bit more nuance and insight to use Quinn's abilities appropriately. Quinn's tag team already has a lot of inherent trade-offs. You do more damage, you're faster, but you have to get into melee range, which makes you more vulnerable. On the other hand, we've seen a lot of competitive players use this in really clever and really smart ways, such as hunting down high-value targets, or ganking, or getting away from a bad situation. This really highlights kind of the strength tag team brings to Quinn's kit. We've lowered the cooldown on tag team because you already have a lot of trade-offs and a lot of decisions to make. Waiting for your cooldown to come back up isn't the decision you should be focused on. Another change we've made is that Heightened Senses passive now also provides movement speed whenever you proc Harrier. This allows her to remain more mobile while either trying to get a better position or going after those high-value Harrier targets.
The other champion change I wanted to discuss was a smaller nerf we're making to Nasus, with the attack speed reduction on Wither being cut in half. Nasus has traditionally been seen as a weak pick, and he's only recently gained some popularity with buffs in a previous patch. So why the nerf?
This is one I definitely wanted to talk about because I think it can be a little confusing to see a character who's been so historically weak finally become viable and then see us nerf it. The key to this is, yeah, we did buff him and that's great, But the problem was he had previously overpowered things before that were never dealt with because he was so weak overall. Wither is a fantastic example of this. The movement speed slow is 95%, and the auto attack speed slow is also 95%. That's basically a stun for an auto attack character. What this creates is when Nasus withers you, you have two options, run or fight. In its current state, neither of those options are realistic. Nasus kills you, and there's no counterplay in that. We decided to nerf this overpowered skill so that we could leave the other things that Nasus players are appreciating intact, like his damage potential and his tankiness.
I'm going to shift our focus to our two big starting item changes. Our first is, we've raised the cost on Elixir of Fortitude. This will have a big impact on early game starts, as we saw even AP mids taking Elixir of Fortitude, even though they didn't really need that AD boost. Was this change made specifically to counter that?
Elixir of Fortitude is meant to be kind of a high-risk, high-reward gambit starting item. A good example of this working properly is back when Shaco used to use it in Season 2. This would let Shaco go all in on an early gank and hopefully propel him into mid and late game. Right now it's so powerful in such a large number of situations that it really removes the item's identity. There's no risk and there's no gamble. This price increase is going to change what other items you can start with when buying an Elixir of Fortitude, and also what situations it makes sense to buy an Elixir of Fortitude in.
The Elixir change is also related to our other item change, where we're limiting the number of HP potions you can buy to 5. This is a big hit to ultra-high sustain builds, and some players feel this was a viable start to get some weak laning champions through early game and into mid game. What were we going for with these changes?
The Mega Health Potion start right now is causing the same problems that Infinite Sustain cause in lanes. Namely, it lowers interaction, it lowers engagement, and it lowers combat. When somebody has that much extra health that they can sustain back, there's no incentivization for you to go attack, harass, or try to push that person out of lane. They're just going to drink it back up. Therefore, your best option is to just farm. That creates really boring, really stale lanes. We think 5 health pots is really reasonable because it lets you stay in lane for a little bit, but the enemy can run you out with good harass or some ganks.
And do you think this exposes a larger problem with the lack of strong starting items?
We actually do, and the problem was we had to fix this first though before looking at that because this is just such a dominant strategy. Nerfing this allows us to also look at other champions who have relied on this to be viable, say Mordekaiser or Kassadin. If this is what it takes for these champions to be viable, there's some bigger underlying problem. We don't want them to have to be viable by removing interaction and removing gameplay in order for them to be good. Instead, these characters should have other reasons to be good instead of just infinite sustain.
Well, that wraps up our discussions for this week. Thanks for coming, Morello.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to everyone else for tuning in. We'll see you next time.